They say Su-Jin built his empire on the bones of men who underestimated him. In the shadows of Seoul's underworld. His name isn't spoken, it's whispered like a curse. The Iron Shadow. The man who walked out of Busan's bloodiest gang war as the only survivor. But every morning at 5:47 a.m., before the sun touches the Connecticut hills, this monster sits cross-legged on his daughter's bedroom floor, watching YouTube tutorials on French braids. Nari isn't his blood. She's the daughter of the only man who ever took a bullet meant for him. A debt written in red, paid in love he didn't know he was capable of feeling. He moved them to America for a fresh start. A place where Nari could be just another 8-year-old girl, not the Iron Shadow's weakness. Where she could laugh without looking over her shoulder. But Silverwood Academy has made a fatal miscalculation. They looked at Su-Jin's tailored suits and foreign accent and saw a mark. They looked at Nari's silence and saw compliance. They looked at money and power and thought they were untouchable. They forgot that the most dangerous predators are the ones protecting their young. And when Su-Jin discovers the yellow-green bruise hidden beneath his daughter's hairline, the beast they awakened doesn't roar, goes silent. And silence, in Su-Jin's world, is the sound that comes before the slaughter. Before we dive into this high-stakes meeting where Su-Jin takes on the board, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far this story is reaching. Also, please make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. It really helps the algorithm push this out to more people who love a good protector-style thriller. Now, let's get into the room. The morning routine never changed. Su-Jin woke at 5:30 a.m. without an alarm. 20 years of survival instincts had made sleep a tactical exercise. He rested with one part of his brain always listening for the sound that didn't belong. His bedroom overlooked 3 acres of manicured Connecticut wilderness, security cameras hidden in every third tree, motion sensors buried along the property line like landmines. He dressed in the dark. Charcoal Tom Ford suit, white shirt pressed with military precision, cufflinks that cost more than most people's cars. The uniform of legitimacy. Hajun Holdings was a legitimate shipping conglomerate now. 37 vessels moving cargo across the Pacific. Clean money. Clean life. Mostly clean. At 5:47 a.m., he padded down the hallway in socked feet and eased open Nari's door. She slept like she did everything else, quietly. Too quietly for an 8-year-old. She didn't snore or sprawl across the bed like the children he'd seen in movies. She slept on her back, hands folded over her chest, as if she'd trained herself not to take up too much space in the world. It broke something in him every time he saw it. "Naria," he whispered in Korean, the language of the life he'd left behind. "Time for school." She woke without startling. Another thing that wasn't normal. Normal children groaned and burrowed deeper into blankets. Normal children whined about 5 more minutes. Nari simply opened her eyes and sat up, her expression carefully neutral. "Good morning, Appa." Her voice was soft, musical. She had her mother's voice, the woman Su-Jin had never met, who died bringing this child into the world. The woman his blood brother had loved more than his own life. "Come," Su-Jin said, gesturing to the vanity chair. "We practice the French braid today." This was their morning ritual. The one piece of normalcy he could give her. He'd spent 2 months watching tutorials, his scarred hands that had held guns and knives in the throats of dying men, learning to weave her dark hair into something beautiful. She sat without complaint while he worked, her shoulders relaxed in a way they never were at school. He could feel her breathing slow down, settling into the one place she felt safe. His fingers moved through her hair, sectioning and crossing, and then he felt it. The rough edge of a scab, hidden just behind her left ear. His hands stopped. "Naria." His voice came out harder than he intended. He watched her spine stiffen in the mirror. "What is this?" "It's nothing, Appa. Show me." He'd learned to read lies in the faces of men who made their living from deception. His daughter's face, reflected in the vanity mirror, was an open book written in fear. She tilted her head. The scab was small, maybe the size of a dime, but the skin around it bloomed yellow-green. Old bruise. For maybe 5 days old. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "I fell," Nari said. Her voice had gone flat. "The bathroom floor was wet. Look at me." He turned. Her eyes met his for exactly 1 second before dropping to her lap. "Nari." He crouched down so they were eye level. "I have told you that you never have to lie to me. Not ever. I will never be angry at you for telling me the truth. Do you understand? She nodded, but she didn't speak. He waited. His patience in these moments was infinite. He'd once waited 17 hours in a shipping container for a target to appear. He could wait forever for his daughter to trust him with the truth. But she didn't speak. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, the shape of something broken. Okay, he said finally. He kissed the top of her head. Get dressed. I will make breakfast. 40 minutes later, Nari sat at the kitchen island eating scrambled eggs while Su-Jin pretended to read the Wall Street Journal on his tablet. He wasn't reading. He was watching his daughter. She'd put on her Silverwood uniform, the navy blazer with the gold crest, the pleated skirt, the knee socks that cost $40 a pair. $73,000 per year in tuition. Another $15,000 in enrichment fees. For what? For his daughter to come home with bruises she lied about. Sang-hun will drive you today, Su-Jin said. Nari looked up surprised. You're not taking me. I have an early meeting. The lie came easily. He'd spent 20 years lying. But I will pick you up. We can get ice cream after school. She smiled, actually smiled, and something in Su-Jin's chest cracked open. The strawberry kind. Any kind you want, my precious flower. That's what her father had called her in the 7 months he'd lived after her birth. Before the bullet that was meant for Su-Jin found him instead. I can't protect her, his brother had whispered, blood on his lips. But you can. Promise me. Promise me you'll keep her safe. Su-Jin had made that promise 14 years ago in a warehouse in Busan while his brother's blood pooled on concrete. He'd kept it through a gang war. Through his rise to power. Through the difficult decision to walk away from the empire he'd built and start over in a country where no one knew his name. And he'd be damned if he'd let some American private school break it. Sang-hun pulled the Mercedes SUV around at 7:15. Su-Jin's head of security was a brick wall of a man who'd followed him from Korea, one of the few he trusted with Nari's life. Straight to school, Su-Jin said in Korean. Stay in the car. Watch who approaches her. Sang-hun's expression didn't change, but Su-Jin saw the understanding in his eyes. You think there's a problem? I think I'm going to find out. After they left, Su-Jin stood in his driveway and made a phone call. Mr. Ha-jun. The principal's voice was aggressively cheerful. To what do I owe the pleasure? I will be visiting the school today. Silence. Oh, we don't have you on the calendar for. I do not need to be on a calendar to visit my daughter's school. Of course not. Course. It's just that we like to prepare for parent visits. Arrange a proper tour. That will not be necessary. I will arrive at lunch. He ended the call. Then he went to his office, unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk, and looked at the thing he'd sworn he'd never touch again. A matte black case. Fingerprint lock. Inside, separated by foam dividers. A Glock 19 with suppressor threading. 2 spare magazines. A tactical folding knife with a 4-inch blade. And a phone. Not his everyday iPhone, but an encrypted satellite phone with exactly 3 numbers programmed into it. The tools of the Iron Shadow. He looked at them for a long time. Then he closed the case, locked it, and put it back in the drawer. Not yet. First, he'd see what he was dealing with. But if someone at that school had hurt his daughter, if someone had put their hands on her and made her feel so afraid that she'd rather lie than tell him the truth, then the case would be opened. And the Iron Shadow would remind Connecticut why some debts could only be paid in blood. He left for Silverwood Academy at 11:30, giving himself plenty of time to arrive before lunch period. He did not call ahead again. Predators, he'd learned, were at their most honest when they didn't know they were being hunted. Silverwood Academy sprawled across 47 acres of Connecticut real estate like a monument to old money. The main building was neo-Gothic, all stone and stained glass, the kind of place that appeared in college brochures with adjectives like prestigious and historic. The student parking lot looked like a luxury car dealership. Su-Jin pulled his Aston Martin into a visitor spot at 11:53 a.m. He'd chosen the car deliberately. At Silverwood, wealth was armor. The parents here measured each other in zeros and property. If he showed up in the Mercedes SUV, practical understated, they'd think he was insecure about his place in the hierarchy. The Aston Martin DB12 in midnight blue said something different. It said, I don't care what you think of me. I can buy and sell you before lunch. The administrative assistant at the front desk looked up as he entered. She was young, mid-20s, and her professional smile flickered when she got a good look at him. Su-Jin was used to this reaction. He was 6'1", lean in the way that came from discipline rather than genetics, and his face had the kind of symmetry that cameras loved. But it was his eyes that made people hesitate. Dark, flat. The eyes of a man who'd seen things that couldn't be unseen. "I am here to observe my daughter during lunch," he said. "Nari Ha-jun. 3rd grade. "Oh, Mr. Ha-jun." The assistant's smile brightened with recognition. Or maybe relief that he wasn't a threat. "Let me just call down to." "That will not be necessary. I know where the cafeteria is." He walked past her desk before she could protest. The hallways were empty, students already at lunch. His footsteps echoed on marble floors. Everything here screamed money. The oil paintings in gilded frames, the trophy cases, the donor plaques listing families who'd been rich for generations. The Ha-jun name wasn't on any of those plaques. New money. Foreign money. The kind that made old money Americans nervous. He reached the cafeteria and stopped outside the double doors. Through the small window, he could see the organized chaos of 200 children eating lunch. The noise was tremendous. Laughter, shouting, the clatter of trays. He scanned the room methodically, the way he used to scan warehouses for exits and threats. Corner table. Nari sat alone. Not alone at a table with other children. Alone at a table meant for 12, her small form at the very end, her lunch tray in front of her untouched. She was reading a book, her head down, shoulders curved inward. Su-Jin's jaw tightened. Then he saw the 3 boys approaching her. They were older, 5th or 6th grade maybe. The kind of children who'd already learned cruelty from their parents. The leader was tall for his age, sandy-haired, wearing his uniform with deliberate carelessness. Expensive watch. Expensive shoes. Expensive smirk. Su-Jin watched as the boy said something to Nari. She didn't look up from her book. The boy said something else. His friends laughed. Nari's shoulders went rigid. The boy reached out and flicked Nari's book, sending it skittering across the table. And then, very deliberately, he picked up his water bottle and poured it over her head. The entire thing happened in less than 10 seconds. Nari sat there, water dripping from her hair, her uniform soaked, her face completely blank. She didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't move. She just sat there, disappearing into herself the way prey animals freeze when the predator is too close. Su-Jin saw a teacher, a middle-aged woman with glasses, look directly at the scene. The 3 boys were still laughing. Nari was still frozen. The teacher looked away. She saw it happen and she looked away. Something inside Su-Jin went very, very quiet. He didn't explode into the cafeteria. Didn't storm through the doors. That wasn't how apex predators operated. Instead, he opened the door calmly and walked inside. The noise didn't stop. Too many children, too much chaos. But he moved through the space like a shark through water. His presence creating ripples. Children looked up. Conversations faltered. The 3 boys didn't notice him until he was standing right behind them. "Excuse me," Su-Jin said quietly. The sandy-haired boy turned around. Close, Su-Jin could see he was maybe 12. Old enough to know better. Young enough that he thought he was untouchable. "Who are you?" the boy asked. Not rude exactly, but not respectful. "I am Nari's father." The boy's smirk didn't fade. "Oh, the Korean dad." Something flickered across the faces of his friends. Not quite fear, but uncertainty. Su-Jin smiled. It was not a nice smile. "What is your name? Why do you want to know?" "Because when I speak to your parents, I prefer to use names rather than descriptions like, 'The boy who assaulted my daughter.'" The smirk finally vanished. "I didn't assault anyone. It was just water." Su-Jin crouched down, slowly, until he was eye level with the boy. Until his voice was low enough that only the 3 of them could hear. "Let me explain something to you," Su-Jin said. "There are rules in your world. Rules about what you can and cannot do. Rules that protect children like you, even when they do terrible things. Do you understand these rules?" The boy nodded, his throat working. "Good. Now let me explain the rules of my world. In my world, when someone hurts someone I love, I do not call their parents. I do not file reports. I solve the problem directly. Permanently. Do you understand this rule? The boy's face had gone white. I didn't, it was just. You are children, Su-Jin continued, his voice soft as silk. So I will give you the gift of a warning. You will never speak to my daughter again. You will never look at her. You will not exist in the same space as her. Because if I see you near her again, if I hear that you spoke to her, touched her, even thought about her, I will teach you what happens when someone mistakes my kindness for weakness. He stood up. The three boys scattered like roaches when the light comes on. The cafeteria had gone completely silent. 200 children and a dozen adults, all staring at him. Su-Jin ignored them. He walked to Nari's table and crouched beside her chair. Naria. She looked at him, her eyes huge in her small face. You are safe now, he said in Korean. Come. We are leaving. But school isn't. We are leaving. He stood and offered his hand. After a moment she took it. Her hand was so small in his, so fragile. He could feel her trembling. They walked toward the exit together, water still dripping from her hair. Principal Sterling intercepted them at the cafeteria doors. He was a soft man with thinning hair and the kind of nervous energy that came from managing entitled parents. Mr. Ha-jun, if we could just discuss this in my office. Move. The word was not loud. But something in Su-Jin's voice made the principal step aside immediately. They walked out of the cafeteria, through the hallways, past the administrative desk where the assistant was on the phone, probably already calling security. Jin didn't care. They made it to the parking lot. He opened the passenger door of the Aston Martin and helped Nari inside. Her wet uniform squeaked against the leather. He climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. Appa! Nari's voice was very small. Am I in trouble? Su-Jin looked at his daughter, at this 8-year-old girl who'd learned to hide bruises and accept cruelty because she thought that was the price of fitting in. No, GWAHN coat, he said. You are not in trouble. You will never be in trouble for being hurt by someone else. He pulled out of the parking lot and didn't look back at Silverwood Academy. But he would return. And when he did, they would learn the difference between the polite man who paid tuition and the monster who collected debts. Su-Jin took Nari home and handed her off to Mrs. Park, the Korean housekeeper who'd been with them since they moved to Connecticut. The older woman took one look at Nari's wet uniform and tear-streaked face and started clucking in rapid-fire Korean, whisking her upstairs for a hot bath and soup. Su-Jin went to his office and closed the door. Then he opened his laptop and started digging. Silverwood Academy had been founded in 1892 by railroad money. The board of directors read like a who's who of Connecticut's elite: venture capitalists, hedge fund managers, a federal judge, 2 congressmen's wives. The kind of people who confused wealth with immunity. The current principal, Sterling Vance, had been in his position for 6 years. Before that, he'd worked at 2 other private schools in New England. Su-Jin pulled up everything he could find: social media, property records, financial disclosures. Sterling owned a house in Greenwich worth $2.3 million. He drove a Lexus. His wife didn't work. 2 kids at Yale. On a principal's salary of $180,000 per year. Su-Jin's eyes narrowed. He dug deeper. Campaign contributions. Charity galas. Golf club memberships. And there, buried in the school's public tax filings, a line item called Integration and Enrichment Programs. The program had been created 4 years ago. It collected an additional $15,000 per year from qualifying families to support cultural integration and specialized student services. Only 3 families qualified. Su-Jin's family. The Okafor family, Nigerian, their son was in 5th grade. The Baptiste family, Haitian, twin daughters in 4th grade. The only 3 black and brown families in a school of 487 students. Su-Jin sat back in his chair, his mind working. $15,000 times 3 families times 4 years. $180,000. Exactly Sterling Vance's annual salary. Clever, Su-Jin murmured. Not illegal exactly. buried in enough paperwork that the IRS wouldn't look twice. But morally, ethically, they were charging families a premium for the privilege of being the diversity statistics in the school's brochure. His phone buzzed. Jinghan. Boss. Security called. The school wants you to attend a mandatory meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. They said it's about the incident, and they strongly suggest you bring a lawyer. Let them suggest whatever they want, Su-Jin said. I will attend. Alone. He ended the call and looked at the clock. 2:47 p.m. The school day ended at 3:15, which meant the staff would still be there. And if he timed it right, he grabbed his keys. Su-Jin arrived at Silverwood Academy at 3:30 p.m., after the buses had left but before the teachers had escaped to their cars. He parked in the visitor lot and walked directly to the administrative building. The assistant's professional smile was gone this time. Mr. Ha-jun, Principal Vance is expecting you tomorrow morning at. I am not here for Principal Vance. Then who? The counselor. Miss Billy. The assistant blinked. Miss Billy. She's new, she only started. Where is her office? 3rd floor West Wing, but you can't just. He was already walking. The 3rd floor was quieter than the main levels. Smaller classrooms, offices for support staff. He found the door labeled Lillian Billy, student counselor, at the end of the hallway. The door was open. Su-Jin stopped in the doorway. The office was small, maybe 10 by 12 feet, and crammed with a kind of organized chaos that spoke of someone who actually cared about their work. Bookshelves overflowing with psychology texts and children's books. A desk covered in file folders. Drawings from students tacked to a corkboard. And sitting behind the desk, reading what looked like a student file, was a woman who made Su-Jin forget why he'd come here. She was younger than he expected, maybe 32. Dark curly hair pulled into a ponytail. No makeup. Wire-rimmed glasses. She wore a simple cardigan over a white blouse, the kind of outfit that was more practical than fashionable. But it was her face that stopped him. Not beautiful in the classical sense, but striking. Strong jawline, full mouth, and eyes when she looked up and saw him standing in her doorway, that were the clearest gray he'd ever seen. Eyes that didn't look away. Mr. Ha-jun, she said. Not a question. You know who I am. The whole school knows who you are after today. She closed the file and folded her hands on top of it. You threatened a 12-year-old boy in front of 200 witnesses. He assaulted my daughter. He poured water on her. Which is assault. Lillian Billy leaned back in her chair. She wasn't smiling, but there was something in her expression, an assessment happening behind those gray eyes. You're right, she said finally. It is assault. And if this school had a functional anti-bullying policy, it would have been addressed months ago. Su-Jin stepped into the office. Months. I've been here for 3 weeks, Mr. Ha-jun. One of the first things I did was review the incident reports. Your daughter has been targeted since the beginning of the school year. Water bottles. Accidentally tripped in the hallway. Her lunch knocked off the table. Once, someone put gum in her hair. The temperature in the small office dropped. Why, Su-Jin said very quietly. Was I not informed of this? Because none of it was ever reported. The teachers saw. The teachers see what they want to see. Which is nothing. Lillian stood up. She was tall, maybe 5'8" or 5'9", and she moved around the desk to face him directly. No fear. No deference. Su-Jin couldn't remember the last time someone looked at him like an equal. Let me be clear about something, Lillian said. I think what you did today was reckless and potentially traumatizing for every child in that cafeteria. I think you're a man who's used to solving problems with intimidation, and I think that attitude is exactly what creates bullies like the ones who hurt your daughter. Su-Jin's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Lillian saw it, and didn't back down. But, she continued, I also think you're the first parent in this entire school who actually gave a damn about what happens to their child when they're not looking. So I'm going to ask you something and I need you to answer honestly. Are you here for revenge? Or are you here to actually fix the problem? What is the difference? Revenge is you beating up a 12-year-old's father in the parking lot and feeling better for 10 minutes. Fixing the problem is you sitting down, shutting up, and listening to someone who actually knows how these systems work. Silence. Su-Jin stared at this woman, this stranger who'd been at Silverwood for less than a month, and felt something shift in his chest. She wasn't afraid of him. And she wasn't impressed by him. She just wanted to help his daughter. I am listening, he said finally. Lillian nodded. She went back to her desk and pulled out a folder. Thick folder. I've been doing some digging, she said. And I found something that's going to make you very angry. More angry than I already am. Much more. She slid the folder across the desk. Su-Jin opened it. Inside were copies of financial documents, email threads, and what looked like internal memos. He read for 2 minutes, then 3. When he looked up, his expression was completely blank, which for anyone who knew him meant he was absolutely furious. They are stealing, he said softly. Not just from you. From every family of color in this school. They created a fake integration program. And they're pocketing the money. But it's worse than that. She pulled out another document. An email thread between Principal Vance and the head of the board, a man named Alistair Thorne. Su-Jin read it. The Ha-Jun family is becoming a problem. The father is too involved, asking too many questions. Suggest we create an environment unfavorable enough to encourage voluntary withdrawal. Focus on the child. Parents always break when their kids are unhappy. The paper crumpled in Su-Jin's fist. This is strategy, he said, his voice like cut glass. Not neglect. Not ignorance. They are targeting her on purpose. Yes. To force us out. Yes. And keep the money. Yes. Su-Jin looked up at Lillian Billy, this woman who'd been here 3 weeks and had already uncovered what he'd missed for months. Why are you showing me this? Because I was Nari once, Lillian said quietly. Different school, different coast. But I was the scholarship kid who didn't fit. And nobody came for me. Nobody fought for me. I got through it, but I still have the scars. She pulled down the collar of her cardigan slightly, revealing a thin white scar along her collarbone. 8th grade. Girl pushed me into a locker. Broke latch caught me on the way down. Teacher said I was being clumsy. Su-Jin stared at the scar. Then at her face. You could lose your job for showing me this. I could. But I didn't become a counselor to protect institutions. I became one to protect kids. What do you want me to do? I want you to let me handle this the right way. Legal. Documented. I want to build a case that destroys their entire operation and makes sure no other family gets targeted like this. And if the legal way does not work. Lillian's gray eyes met his dark ones. Then I'll hand you the matches and get out of your way. For the first time in months, Su-Jin smiled. It was not a nice smile. I think, Miss Billy, that you and I are going to work very well together. Lillian Billy lived in a modest apartment complex 20 minutes from Silverwood Academy. She'd moved to Connecticut from California 6 months ago, chasing a job opportunity that paid slightly better than her previous position and offered the chance to work at a prestigious institution. She'd learned within 2 weeks that prestigious was code for wealthy and corrupt. Now, at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night, she sat at her kitchen table with Su-Jin Ha-Jun, surrounded by documents that could potentially destroy one of New England's most respected private schools. And possibly end her career before it really began. Walk me through it again, Su-Jin said. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. Lillian tried very hard not to notice the way the expensive fabric of his shirt pulled across his shoulders, or the way his forearms were corded with lean muscle. She focused on the documents instead. The Integration and Enrichment Program was created 4 years ago, she explained. Officially, it's meant to provide additional support for students from diverse cultural backgrounds. Tutoring, counseling, cultural sensitivity training for staff. But none of that exists. None of it. I've checked the budget allocations. The money doesn't go to any programs. It goes into a discretionary fund controlled by Principal Vance and the board chairman, Alistair Thorne. How much? Over 4 years. About $180,000. Su-Jin's expression didn't change, but Lillian saw his jaw tighten. That is Vance's salary. Exactly. And Thorne. What does he get? Lillian pulled out another document. Thorne owns a consulting company that the school pays $75,000 per year for strategic guidance. The company has no employees, no office, no deliverables. It's just a pass-through. Su-Jin leaned back in his chair. So they create a fake program, charge minority families extra, and funnel the money to themselves. Yes. And the bullying. I think that's where it gets really ugly. Lillian pulled up an email on her laptop. This is from 18 months ago. The school was applying for accreditation renewal. One of the requirements is demonstrating commitment to diversity and inclusion. She turned the laptop so Su-Jin could see. They used Nari in the promotional materials. Her photo is in the accreditation packet, the website, the admissions brochures. She's their proof of diversity. While actively trying to force her out. Lillian confirmed. They want the appearance of diversity without the reality of it. And when parents like you start asking questions or getting involved, they make life uncomfortable enough that you leave on your own. No scandal. No lawsuits. Exactly. Su-Jin was quiet for a long moment. He stood and walked to Lillian's kitchen window, looking out at the parking lot. In my country, he said finally, there is a saying. Harangi rule Jaburiomian Harangi Guli Duriagaya Handa. To catch a tiger, you must enter the tiger's den. I don't speak Korean. It means that sometimes to solve a problem, you must become more dangerous than the problem itself. Lillian set down the document she'd been holding. Mr. Hajun. Su-Jin. What? If we are going to work together, you should call me Su-Jin. Okay. Su-Jin. His name felt strange in her mouth. Intimate. I need to know something before we go any further. When you threatened that boy today, were you serious? About hurting a child? No. But you wanted them to think you were. Yes. Why? Su-Jin turned to face her. In the dim light of her kitchen, with his tie loosened and his carefully constructed facade of civility slipping, Lillian could see something else beneath the surface. Something cold. Something lethal. Because fear is a language everyone speaks, he said quietly. And sometimes it is the only language certain people understand. You're not a CEO, are you? The question hung in the air between them. Su-Jin could have lied. Could have laughed it off. Could have walked out of her apartment and made sure she never found out anything else about his past. Instead he said, I am a CEO. But that is not all I am. What else are you? Someone who understands that the world has 2 sets of rules. One for people like Principal Vance, who can steal and abuse and never face consequences. And one for everyone else. And which rules do you follow? Neither. I make my own. Lillian should have been scared. Should have asked him to leave. Should have realized that she was sitting alone in her apartment at 9 p.m. with a man who just essentially admitted he was dangerous. Instead, she felt the strangest sense of recognition. I need to tell you something, she said. And it's going to sound insane. Tell me. When I was 15, I was in foster care. My 4th placement in 3 years. The foster father. She paused, the memory still sharp after all these years. He liked to discipline with his belt. I reported it. Know what happened? Su-Jin's expression went very still. They moved me to a different home. He got a warning. Kept his license. Went on to foster 6 more kids after me. And this taught you what? Su-Jin asked. That the system protects itself, not the people it's supposed to serve. That sometimes the rules are designed to help the wrong people. She met his eyes. So when you say you make your own rules, I understand that more than you think. Su-Jin studied her for a long moment. Then he returned to the table and sat down. Then we are agreed. We will do this your way first. Document everything. Build the legal case. Give them the chance to face consequences through their own system. And if that doesn't work, then we do it my way. Lillian should have asked what his way meant. Should have established boundaries. Instead, she found herself nodding. Okay. But we need more than financial documents. We need testimony from other families. We need evidence of the systemic harassment. The Okafor family. The Baptiste family. Yes. If they'll talk to us. They will. Su-Jin pulled out his phone. I will arrange a meeting. How can you be sure they'll? Because they are living the same nightmare we are. And people who are drowning will always grab the rope. By midnight they had a plan. Su-Jin would reach out to the other families, quietly. Lillian would continue gathering documentation, building a timeline of incidents. They'd present everything to the board first. Give them the chance to do the right thing. And if the board refuses? Lillian asked as she walked him to her door. Then we go public. Media. Lawyers. Whatever it takes. He stopped at the door, his hand on the knob. He was standing close enough that Lillian could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving a damn about a little girl you barely know. For risking your job. For. He paused, searching for words. For not being afraid of me. Should I be afraid of you? Su-Jin's dark eyes held hers. I don't know yet. It was the most honest thing he'd said all night. After he left, Lillian locked her door and leaned against it, her heart pounding. She was playing with fire. She knew that. Su-Jin Ha-jun was not a normal parent. There was something in the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he'd threatened that 12-year-old boy with such cold precision. He was dangerous, but so was she in her own way. And maybe that was exactly what Silverwood Academy needed. The Okafor family lived in a beautiful colonial in West Hartford, about 30 minutes from Silverwood. Su-Jin arrived at 7 p.m. on Thursday evening, Lillian in the passenger seat of his Aston Martin. Let me do the talking, Lillian said as they pulled into the driveway. Why? Because you scare people. I do not scare people. Lillian gave him a look. You threatened a child and made him cry. He deserved it. I'm not arguing that. But let's try a softer approach with the Okafors. Dr. Chinyu Okafor answered the door. She was a striking woman in her early 40s, wearing scrubs. She was a surgeon at Hartford General. Her husband, Obina, was a patent attorney. Their son, Chitty, was in 5th grade at Silverwood. Mr. Ha-jun, Dr. Okafor said, her expression carefully neutral. I heard about what happened in the cafeteria. Then you know why I am here. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. Come in. They sat in the living room, tastefully decorated, family photos on the mantel, a baby grand piano in the corner. The kind of home that spoke of success and stability. Obina Okafor sat across from them. His expression guarded. We were wondering when someone would finally say something, he said quietly. About the bullying? Lillian asked. About everything. Dr. Okafor poured tea with practiced grace, but Lillian noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Chitty came home last week with a split lip, she said. He told us he fell during soccer. But I'm a surgeon. I know the difference between a fall and a punch. Su-Jin leaned forward. Did you report it? Of course we did. We scheduled a meeting with Principal Vance. He was very sympathetic, very concerned. He launched an investigation. And inconclusive. No witnesses. No camera footage from that part of the field. These things happen in contact sports. Except soccer is not a contact sport, Su-Jin said. That's what I told him. Obina's jaw clenched. He suggested that maybe Chitty was too aggressive in his play style. That maybe he was culturally unfamiliar with the rules. Chitty's been playing soccer since he was 4, Dr. Okafor added quietly. He knows the rules better than most of the white kids on that field. Lillian pulled out her tablet. Did you ever receive any communication about an integration and enrichment program? The Okafors exchanged a glance. The extra fees, Obina said. Yes. We were told it was mandatory for students from underrepresented backgrounds. Did you ever see evidence of this program? No. When we asked for details, we were sent vague emails about ongoing initiatives and cultural competency training. That's because the program doesn't exist, Su-Jin said bluntly. They are stealing from you. Dr. Okafor set down her teacup. What? Lillian spent the next 20 minutes walking them through everything she'd discovered. The fake program. The embezzlement. The emails discussing how to make families voluntarily withdraw. By the end, Dr. Okafor's professional composure had cracked. They used my son in their diversity brochure, she whispered. They took photos of him at the science fair and put them on their website. And the entire time they were. She couldn't finish. Obina stood and walked to the window. his shoulders rigid. "What do you need from us?" he asked without turning around. "Documentation," Lillian said. "Every incident, every email, every conversation. We're building a case. Against Vance. Against all of them. Vance, the board, everyone who knew about this and let it happen." Dr. Okafor looked at Su-Jin. "What happened in the cafeteria? The way you confronted those boys. People are saying you threatened them." "I did. I should be horrified by that. But you are not." "No." She wiped her eyes. "I'm grateful. Because for the first time since Chitty started at that school, someone actually did something. They left the Okafor's house at 9 p.m. with a promise. The family would compile everything they had and send it to Lillian by the weekend. The Baptiste family was next, but when Su-Jin called, Nadege Baptiste's voice was tight with fear. "Mr. Hajun, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But we can't be involved." "Why not?" "Because we can't afford to lose this. My husband and I. We worked too hard to get here. Silverwood opens doors. If we make waves, if we get labeled as problem parents, they are already pushing you out," Su-Jin said quietly. "How do you know that?" "Because they are pushing all of us out. And they will keep doing it until someone stops them. I have twin daughters, Mr. Hajun. If this goes wrong, you can blame me. Tell everyone I pressured you. But if we do nothing, your daughters will spend the next 7 years being treated like they don't belong." Another long pause. "I'll think about it," Nadege said finally. She hung up. Lillian looked at Su-Jin. "That's not a yes. That's not a no." They were driving back to Lillian's apartment when Su-Jin's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed. "I need to take this." He pulled over to the side of the road and answered in rapid Korean. The conversation lasted less than 30 seconds, but Lillian watched his face go from tense to absolutely murderous. He ended the call. "What's wrong?" Lillian asked. "That was Sang-hun. Someone tried to access Nari's medical records this afternoon." "What? Who?" "A law firm. They sent a request to her pediatrician claiming they needed the records for a custody evaluation. But you're her legal guardian. There's no custody dispute." "Exactly." Su-Jin's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Someone is trying to build a case against me. The school. The school." Lillian's mind raced. "They're going to try to paint you as an unfit parent. Use what happened in the cafeteria as evidence that you're violent, unstable. They are going to try to take her from me." The way he said it, so quiet, so cold, sent a chill down Lillian's spine. "They can't. You haven't done anything illegal." "I have done many illegal things, Lillian. Just not recently. Not in this country." He looked at her. "But if they dig deep enough, if they look hard enough at my past, what will they find?" Su-Jin was quiet for a long moment. "They will find the Iron Shadow." "Who is that?" "Someone I used to be. Someone I thought I'd left behind in Korea." He pulled back onto the road and drove in silence. When they reached Lillian's apartment, she didn't get out immediately. "Su-Jin," she said quietly, "whatever you've done in the past, you don't want to know. Maybe not. But I know this. You're a good father. You love that little girl more than anything. And whatever happened before, whoever you were, it doesn't change that." He stared straight ahead through the windshield. "My brother died for me," he said finally. "He took a bullet that had my name on it. And with his last breath, he asked me to protect Nari. To give her the life he couldn't." His voice cracked just slightly. "I have killed men, Lillian. I have done things that would make you sick. But I have never broken a promise. And I will not break the one I made to him." Lillian reached over and took his hand. His skin was warm, his palm calloused. "Then we don't let them take her. Whatever it takes." Su-Jin looked down at their joined hands. Then at her face. "You realize what you are saying. If this goes wrong, I know. They will destroy your career. I don't care. Lillian. I don't care," she repeated more firmly. "I didn't become a counselor to play it safe. I became one to fight for kids who can't fight for themselves. So if Silverwood wants a war, they'll get one." Something shifted in Su-Jin's expression. The cold mask cracked, and for just a moment she saw the man beneath. Scared, desperate, clinging to the only good thing in his life. "You are a dangerous woman, Lillian Billy," he said softly. "Good. Because you're going to need one." That night, after Su-Jin left, Lillian couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what he'd said. The Iron Shadow. Whatever that meant, it wasn't good. She pulled out her laptop and started searching. Korean gangs. Organized crime. And then she found it. An article from 8 years ago in a Korean news site, translated through Google. Iron Shadow vanishes after Busan bloodbath. Gang war leaves 47 dead. There was a grainy photo of a crime scene. And another photo, a blurry surveillance image of a man in black. His face partially obscured. But Lillian could see enough to recognize the sharp jawline. The predatory grace. Her hands were shaking as she read the article. Su-Jin wasn't just connected to organized crime. He'd been one of the most feared enforcers in the Korean underworld. And now he was at war with a private school in Connecticut. Lillian closed her laptop and stared at the ceiling. She should have been terrified. Should have called the police or at least cut all ties. Instead, she felt strangely calm. Because Silverwood Academy had made a fatal mistake. They thought they were hunting a desperate parent. They had no idea they'd cornered an apex predator. Friday morning, Su-Jin received a formal letter from Silverwood Academy's legal counsel. It was delivered by courier at 6:47 a.m., before Nari woke up. Su-Jin signed for it, tipped the courier, and opened the envelope standing in his driveway while the sun rose over the Connecticut hills. The letter was 3 pages long. Professionally worded. Devastating in its implications. Dear Mr. Hajun, this letter is to inform you that Silverwood Academy is conducting a comprehensive review of student safety and parental conduct following the incident on Tuesday, October 15th. During this review, we have identified several concerns regarding your fitness as a guardian and your ability to engage with our school community in a manner consistent with our values. Specifically, 1. Your unauthorized entry into a school building and confrontation with minor students constitutes a violation of our security protocols and potentially exposes students to harm. 2. Witness statements indicate you made threatening remarks to students, creating an environment of fear and intimidation. 3. Your removal of Nari from school premises without proper sign-out procedures violated custody protocols. Given these serious concerns, Silverwood Academy is prepared to offer the following resolution. Immediate withdrawal of Nari Hajun from Silverwood Academy, a full refund of this year's tuition and fees, a confidential separation agreement releasing all parties from further claims, a letter of recommendation for alternative educational placements. Alternatively, if you choose to contest this resolution, the Academy will have no choice but to file a formal complaint with Child Protective Services requesting an investigation into Nari's home environment, seek a restraining order prohibiting your presence on school grounds, pursue legal action for damages related to disruption of school operations and harm to our institutional reputation. We request your response by 5 p.m. today, October 18th. We believe this resolution serves the best interests of all parties, particularly Nari. It was signed by Sterling Vance and countersigned by Alistair Thorne, chairman of the board. Su-Jin read it twice. Then he very calmly walked inside, placed the letter on his desk, and called Lillian. She answered on the second ring, her voice rough with sleep. Hello. They sent an ultimatum. I am forwarding it to you now. He heard rustling, Lillian sitting up in bed. What kind of ultimatum? The kind that threatens to take my daughter away if I do not surrender. 10 seconds of silence. Forward me the letter. I'm coming over. You do not need to. I'm coming over. Don't do anything until I get there. She hung up. Su-Jin sat in his office and looked at the letter again. The legal language was precise, professional, but underneath the formality was a simple message. We own the system. We make the rules. Submit or lose everything. In Busan, men who sent messages like this usually ended up bleeding in shipping containers. But this wasn't Busan. This was Connecticut. And he'd promised himself that he'd left that life behind. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your background check came back interesting. We should talk before you make any decisions you'll regret. No signature. Su-Jin stared at the message. They knew. Or they were bluffing. Either way, the game had changed. Another text. Alistair Thorne. Call me. We can make this disappear. Su-Jin deleted both messages and set the phone down. 30 minutes later, Lillian arrived. She was still in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. Her hair in a messy bun, no makeup. She looked like she'd run out of her apartment the moment she hung up. She also looked furious. Let me see it. Su-Jin handed her the letter. She read it standing up, her jaw clenching tighter with each paragraph. This is extortion, she said finally. Yes. And witness statements. What witnesses? The boys you confronted. They're going to use the testimony of bullies to paint you as the threat. Apparently. And CPS. They're going to weaponize Child Protective Services because you stood up for your daughter. That is the plan. Lillian paced across his office. The letter crumpled in her fist. We need a lawyer. Good one. Someone who specializes in education law and civil rights. I have lawyers. Then call them. I will. But first, I want to know what you think I should do. Lillian stopped pacing. She looked at him, really looked at him, and Su-Jin saw the exact moment she understood what he was actually asking. Should I submit? Or should I fight? What do you want to do? She asked carefully. I want to burn that school to the ground and salt the earth where it stood. But you won't. Not if there is another way. Lillian set the letter down on his desk. She walked to where he sat and crouched down so they were eye level. Here's what I think, she said. I think they're panicking. I think they know we have evidence of embezzlement and systematic discrimination, and they're trying to neutralize the threat before we can use it. This letter isn't strength. It's fear. They are threatening to take Nari. They're bluffing. They can't take Nari based on one incident where you confronted bullies. CPS doesn't work that way. They'd need evidence of actual abuse or neglect, and they don't have it. Unless they manufacture it. Lillian's expression hardened. Then we move first. Today. Right now. How? We go to the media. We go public with everything we have, the financial fraud, the systematic harassment, the fake integration program. We make so much noise that they can't silence us without everyone watching. Su-Jin shook his head. That will destroy them, but it will also destroy Nari's privacy. Her name, her face. It will be everywhere. She will be the victim. Forever. You're right. Lillian sat back on her heels. So we give them one chance. What do you mean? We schedule a meeting with the full board. Today. We present everything we have and give them a choice. Fix this or we go nuclear. And if they refuse, then we go nuclear. Su-Jin studied her. You are willing to risk your career for this. I already risked it the moment I showed you those documents. Why? Because I'm tired of watching powerful people hurt kids and face zero consequences. Because I'm tired of systems that protect predators and punish victims. Because. She stopped, her voice catching. Because what? Su-Jin asked softly. Because when I was 15 and that foster father broke my collarbone with his belt, I reported it. And you know what the social worker said to me? She said, these things are complicated. It's your word against his. Maybe you misunderstood his discipline style. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her voice was steady. I didn't misunderstand anything. And I swore that if I ever had the power to fight for a kid the way nobody fought for me, I would. So yes, I'm willing to risk my career. Because this is why I have it. Su-Jin reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were cold. Then we fight, he said. Your way first. We give them the chance to do the right thing. And if they don't? The expression that crossed Su-Jin's face was not quite a smile. Then they learn what happens when you threaten the only thing in this world I love more than my own life. By noon they had a plan. Su-Jin's lawyer, a sharp woman named Diane Rothstein who specialized in education law and didn't scare easily, reviewed all the evidence and agreed. They had a case. Not just for financial fraud, but for civil rights violations, hostile environment, and potentially criminal conspiracy. This is the kind of case that ends careers, Diane said over speakerphone. If you go public, you'll win. But it'll be bloody. What if we offer them a settlement first? Lillian asked. You mean give them an out? Give them a choice. Fix the problem, compensate the families, fire the people responsible, or face federal investigation and a class action lawsuit. Diane was quiet for a moment. That could work. But you'd need to deliver it from a position of strength. They have to believe you'll actually pull the trigger. Su-Jin looked at Lillian. Schedule the meeting with the board. When? Today. 5 p.m. The same deadline they gave me. They won't agree to meet on such short notice. Yes, they will. Because I will make them an offer they cannot refuse. Lillian raised an eyebrow. Did you just quote The Godfather? I have never seen The Godfather. You're a crime boss who's never seen The Godfather. I am not a crime boss. I am a legitimate businessman. Right. And I'm the Queen of England. For the first time in days, Su-Jin laughed. It was a short, surprised sound, like he'd forgotten how. Lillian smiled. There he is. Who? The man under all the armor. Su-Jin's expression softened. He is not a very nice man, Lillian. Maybe not. But he loves his daughter. And right now, that's all that matters. At 2 p.m., Su-Jin sent an email to Sterling Vance and Alistair Thorne. Gentlemen, I have received your letter and your deadline. I have a counteroffer. Emergency board meeting. Today, 5 p.m. All members required. Come prepared to discuss the integration and enrichment program, including a full accounting of where the funds have been allocated over the past 4 years. Also come prepared to explain why your school's diversity promotional materials feature my daughter, while your internal communications discuss strategies for forcing our voluntary withdrawal. Failure to attend this meeting will result in this information being delivered to the Connecticut State Attorney General, the IRS, and every major news outlet in New England by 6 p.m. Choice. Jin Hajun. Hit send. Think they'll show? Lillian asked. They will show. Because rich men always believe they can talk their way out of trouble. And when they can't, Su-Jin's expression went cold. Then the Iron Shadow comes home. The Silverwood Academy boardroom was exactly what Su-Jin expected. Old wood, older money, and the kind of institutional arrogance that came from generations of never being challenged. 7 board members sat around a table that could have seated 20. Sterling Vance was there, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 days. Alistair Thorne sat at the head of the table, silver-haired 60s, the kind of man who was used to being the smartest person in every room. There was also a woman Su-Jin didn't recognize. 50s, steel gray suit, leather briefcase. Lawyer. Lillian sat to Su-Jin's right, a stack of documents in front of her. Diane Rothstein was on speakerphone, her voice clear and professional. Su-Jin had dressed for war, black 3-piece suit, no tie. He looked like he was attending a funeral. Maybe he was. Mr. Hajun, Alistair Thorne said, his voice dripping with false courtesy. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. Though I must say, your email this afternoon was rather inflammatory. It was accurate. That's a matter of perspective. No. Diane Rothstein's voice cut through the speakerphone. It's a matter of documentation, which my clients have extensive amounts of. The board's lawyer, a woman who introduced herself as Patricia Winters, opened her briefcase. Before we go any further, I want to state for the record that Silverwood Academy categorically denies any wrongdoing. The Integration and Enrichment Program is a legitimate educational initiative. That doesn't exist, Lillian interrupted. She slid a document across the table. This is your budget allocation for the past 4 years. Show me one line item that corresponds to actual programming. Patricia scanned the document. Her expression didn't change, but Su-Jin saw her jaw tighten. The program is administered through discretionary funds. Discretionary funds controlled by Principal Vance and Mr. Thorne, Lillian continued. The same Principal Vance whose personal income exactly matches the amount collected through the fake program. The same Mr. Thorne whose consulting company, which has no employees, no office, and no deliverables, receives $75,000 annually from school funds. She slid another document across the table. This is an email from Principal Vance to Mr. Thorne, dated September 12th, discussing strategies for creating an unfavorable environment to encourage the withdrawal of minority families. Would you like me to read it aloud? Silence. Sterling Vance looked like he might vomit. Alistair Thorne's expression had gone from confident to calculating. These documents were obtained illegally, Patricia Winters said. They're not admissible in a court of law. Maybe. Diane's voice came through the speaker. But they're absolutely admissible in the court of public opinion, and in a federal civil rights investigation, and in an IRS audit. Su-Jin leaned forward. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to listen. You are not going to interrupt. And when I am finished, you are going to make a choice. Alistair opened his mouth. I said do not interrupt. Something in Su-Jin's voice made even Alistair Thorne close his mouth. Option 1, Su-Jin continued. You do the right thing. You dissolve the fake program. You refund every penny you have stolen from the Okafor family, the Baptiste family, and my family. You implement real anti-bullying policies with actual oversight. You fire every administrator and board member who knew about this and let it happen. He paused. And you establish a scholarship fund, fully endowed, managed by an independent board, to provide free tuition for students from underrepresented backgrounds. Starting amount, $2 million. Patricia Winters actually laughed. You can't be serious. Option 2, Su-Jin said, ignoring her. We go public. Today. Diane has already drafted the complaint for the State Attorney General. Lillian has already contacted 3 news outlets who are very interested in a story about elite private school embezzlement and systematic racism. And I have already spoken to the Okafor and Baptiste families, who are ready to join a class action lawsuit. He stood up and placed both hands on the table. Your school will be destroyed. Not financially. I know you have insurance and lawyers and money. But your reputation will be ash. Every parent will pull their children. Every college will question every transcript. Every donor will run. The Silverwood name will become synonymous with corruption and racism. You're threatening us, Alistair said. No, I'm giving you a choice. And I am being far more generous than you deserve. Sterling Vance finally spoke, his voice shaking. We didn't mean for it to go this far. The program, it started as a way to fund additional resources, and then you got greedy, Lillian finished. And you decided that minority families were easy marks. That we'd be too scared or too grateful to ask questions. We never intended to hurt anyone. You hurt my daughter, Su-Jin said quietly. You made her feel so afraid that she hid bruises from me. You made her believe that her silence was the price of belonging. Do you understand what that does to a child? Sterling looked away. Alistair Thorne, however, met Su-Jin's eyes. You think you're the hero in this story, Alistair said. But you're not. You're a criminal. Yes, we looked into you, Mr. Ha-Jun. Or should I call you by your real name? The one they used in Busan before you fled the country. The temperature in the room dropped. Lillian glanced at Su-Jin. His expression was absolutely blank. What I was is not relevant to what you've done, Su-Jin said. Isn't it? You come in here with your threats and your documents, pretending to be a concerned parent. But you're just a thug. Gangster. You think we're afraid of you. Su-Jin smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You should be. He pulled out his phone and set it on the table. Then he pressed play. A voice filled the room. Alistair Thorne's voice, from a recording. Look, Sterling, these families are a problem. They ask too many questions, they make the other parents uncomfortable. We need to create an environment where they choose to leave. Focus on the kids, hit them where it hurts. Parents always break when their kids are suffering. Alistair's face went white. Where did you get that? From your phone. The one you left on Principal Vance's desk 3 weeks ago during a board meeting. Su-Jin slid the phone across the table. I have 17 other recordings just like it. Conversations about which families to target. Discussions about how to hide the embezzlement. Plans to use CPS as a weapon against parents who fought back. He leaned down until he was eye level with Alistair. You are right about one thing, Mr. Thorne. I am not the hero. I am something much more dangerous. I am a father who has nothing left to lose except his daughter. And I will burn your entire world down before I let you take her from me. This is extortion, Patricia Winters said. No, Diane's voice came through the speaker. This is accountability. Something your clients have avoided for far too long. Lillian stood up. You have until 6 p.m. to accept option 1. After that, we file everything we have with the authorities and the media. Your choice. She gathered her documents and walked toward the door. Su-Jin followed but paused at the threshold. One more thing, he said without turning around. The boys who hurt Nari, the ones who poured water on her, who pushed her, who made her life miserable. I want their names. We can't give you that information, Patricia said. Student privacy. Then I will find them myself. And when I do, I will visit each of their families and have a very honest conversation about the consequences of raising children who are cruel. He looked back over his shoulder. In my experience, bullies learn it from somewhere. Usually home. He walked out, leaving the board in stunned silence. Outside in the parking lot, Lillian grabbed Su-Jin's arm. That recording. Did you actually hack Alistair's phone? No. Then how? I lied. Su-Jin's expression was perfectly calm. There is no recording. But now they believe there is. And they will spend the next 2 hours panicking and making mistakes. Lillian stared at him. That was brilliant. That was necessary. Do you think they'll take the deal? Yes, because Alistair Thorne is a coward. And cowards always choose survival. His phone buzzed. A text from Sang-hun. Boss, black SUV has been circling the property. Same one from last month. They're watching the house. Su-Jin's expression changed. What's wrong? Lillian asked. We need to go. Now. What happened? Someone is watching my house. And I left Nari there. They ran for the car. Su-Jin drove like a man possessed. The Aston Martin screamed through Connecticut back roads, taking corners at speeds that made Lillian grip the door handle and pray. Call Sang-hun, Su-Jin ordered. Tell him to move Nari to the panic room and lock down the estate. Lillian dialed. Sang-hun answered on the first ring. Already done, boss. Nari's secure. Mrs. Park is with her. But you need to see something. What? The SUV left a package at the gate. No explosives, I already scanned it. But there's a note. What does it say? Silence. Then. It's in Korean. And it's addressed to the Iron Shadow. Su-Jin's hands tightened on the wheel. Beside him, Lillian watched his face transform, the careful mask of civilization slipping away to reveal something cold and lethal beneath. Boss! Sang-hun's voice crackled through the speaker. What do you want me to do? Stay with Nari. Do not open the package. I will be there in 8 minutes. He ended the call and pushed the car faster. Su-Jin, Lillian said carefully. Who are they? Ghost. Men I thought I left behind when I came to America. From Busan. He glanced at her sharply. What do you know about Busan? I looked you up. After you told me about the Iron Shadow, I needed to know what I was getting into. And what did you find? 47 dead in one night. A gang war that ended an entire organization. And one man who walked away from it all and disappeared. Su-Jin's jaw clenched. That man died in Busan. I came here to be someone different. But they found you anyway. They found me. The estate appeared ahead. Gates, security cameras, the sprawling colonial house that Su-Jin had bought with clean money and legitimate business. Place where Nari could grow up normal. Except nothing was normal anymore. Sang-hun met them at the entrance, his face grim. He handed Su-Jin a black box, about the size of a shoebox, with a single white ribbon tied around it. The note was tucked under the ribbon, written in elegant Korean calligraphy. The tiger remembers. The debt is not paid. Return what you stole or we take something precious. Su-Jin opened the box. Inside was a photograph. Nari walking from the car to the school entrance, taken yesterday. Someone had drawn a red circle around her head. Beneath the photograph was a white flower petal. Silk not real. And a small card with a single word. Lillian looked at the contents and went pale. They're threatening to kill her. No. Su-Jin's voice was empty of emotion. They are threatening to take her. Which is worse. Take her where? Korea. Back to the people I took her from. Lillian grabbed his arm. Su-Jin, what did you steal? He closed the box carefully. His movements precise and controlled. When he looked at her, his eyes were dead. The truth about her father. Inside the house, Nari was safe in the panic room. A reinforced chamber in the basement with its own air supply, communications, and enough supplies for 3 days. Mrs. Park sat with her, reading stories in Korean, keeping her calm. Su-Jin watched his daughter through the security monitor. His heart a stone in his chest. Lillian stood beside him in his office. Sang-hun was at the door, armed now. His casual demeanor replaced with professional vigilance. Tell me everything, Lillian said. No more secrets. Su-Jin poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. He didn't offer her any. This story wasn't the kind you toasted to. Nari's father was my blood brother. Not by relation but by oath. We grew up in the same slums of Busan, worked for the same organization. He was the only person in that life I trusted. He took a drink. The organization we worked for was called the White Tiger Clan. They controlled shipping, gambling, protection. Standard organized crime. But the leadership was brutal. They believed in blood debts. If someone betrayed the clan, they didn't just kill that person. They killed their family, their children, everyone. That's barbaric. That's control. Fear is the most effective currency in the underworld. Su-Jin walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful Connecticut landscape. Nari's mother died in childbirth. Complication. She was hemorrhaging and needed a hospital, but her husband, my brother, was in the middle of a job. By the time he got back, she was gone. His voice cracked slightly. He blamed himself, started drinking, making mistakes, and then one night, he overheard something he wasn't supposed to hear. The clan leadership was planning to expand into human trafficking. Not drugs, not weapons, people. Women and children. Lillian's stomach turned. My brother wanted out. He came to me, told me what he'd heard, begged me to leave with him. But I was young and stupid and ambitious. I told him to keep his head down and wait. That we couldn't just walk away. But he didn't wait. No. He stole evidence. Ledgers, names, shipping manifests. Everything that could bring down the entire trafficking operation. He was going to take it to the authorities. Start over somewhere clean. Su-Jin finished his whiskey. They found out. Sent me to kill him. The room went silent. I couldn't do it. When I got to his apartment, he showed me the evidence. Showed me what the clan was really doing. Children as young as Nari being sold across borders. And I realized he was right. We were monsters. So you helped him. I tried. But we were betrayed. Someone in our crew told the leadership. They sent an execution squad to the warehouse where we were hiding. 40 men. Armed with everything. His hand went unconsciously to a scar hidden beneath his shirt. We fought our way out. Killed them all. Every single one. It wasn't strategy, it was survival. And when it was over, the warehouse was full of bodies and the White Tiger Clan was crippled. That was the bloodbath. The 47 dead. Yes. But in the chaos, my brother took a bullet meant for me. He died in my arms, and with his last words, he made me promise 2 things. Destroy the trafficking operation and protect Nari. Su-Jin turned to face Lillian. So I took the evidence and disappeared. Gave everything to the authorities anonymously. The clan collapsed. Leadership went to prison. The trafficking network was dismantled. I thought it was over. But it wasn't. Some of them survived. Mid-level enforcers, low-ranking soldiers. They scattered, went underground. And apparently, they've been looking for me ever since. Why now? Why wait 8 years? Because I disappeared completely. New identity, new country, new life. But when the story about the cafeteria hit the local news. He gestured to his laptop, where a news article was pulled up. Foreign CEO confronts bullies at elite Connecticut school. Someone recognized me. And now the remnants of the clan want revenge. Not just on me. On the daughter of the man who betrayed them. Lillian's mind raced. The school situation. Alistair Thorne's threats. This is connected, isn't it? Su-Jin nodded slowly. I think someone approached Thorne. Offered to help him deal with his problem parent. In exchange for information about Nari's schedule, security, medical records. Thorne thinks he hired Muscle to intimidate me. He has no idea he's made a deal with the devil. We need to call the police. And tell them what? That Korean gangsters are threatening my daughter because of crimes I committed in another country. The police cannot help us. This is my world, my rules. Then what do we do? Su-Jin walked to his desk and opened the bottom drawer, the one with the matte black case. He placed it on the desk and opened it. The Glock gleamed under the office lights. Cold, efficient, deadly. We end this, Su-Jin said quietly. Tonight. Lillian stared at the gun. You're going to kill them. I am going to protect my daughter. By any means necessary. Su-Jin. You should leave, Lillian. Take your car and go home. Forget you were ever part of this. I'm not leaving. This is not your fight. The hell it isn't. She stepped closer to him, her gray eyes blazing. You think I'm going to walk away now? After everything? I told you I'd fight for Nari, and I meant it. I am not asking you to be part of this violence. I know what you're asking. And I'm telling you that you're not doing this alone. Su-Jin looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd come into his life 3 weeks ago and turned everything upside down. This woman who saw the monster he'd been and still chose to stand beside him. If I do this, he said quietly, there is no coming back. The Iron Shadow does not leave survivors. Then don't leave survivors. But don't ask me to abandon you either. For a long moment they stood there, the weight of the decision hanging between them. Then Su-Jin's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Video file. He opened it. The video showed a warehouse somewhere in Connecticut. Empty except for a single chair in the center, lit by a harsh overhead light. And sitting in that chair, bound and gagged, was a woman Lillian recognized from her meeting with Su-Jin. Dr. Chinyu Okafor. A voice spoke over the video, Korean, but subtitled in English. You have 12 hours to return what you stole, Iron Shadow. For every hour you delay, we take someone you care about. The doctor. The lawyer. The counselor. Choose wisely. The video ended. Lillian felt her blood turn to ice. They took Dr. Okafor. How? They are professionals. Su-Jin's voice was empty. They have been watching all of us. Sang-hun appeared in the doorway. Boss, we just got word. The Baptiste family's house was broken into an hour ago. The family is safe, they were out, but someone went through everything. Looking for what? Information. Connections. Names. Su-Jin closed his eyes. They are building a target list. Everyone who stood with me against the school, everyone who knows about Nari, they are all in danger. Then we call the FBI, Lillian insisted. This is kidnapping, extortion. The FBI will take weeks to investigate. Dr. Okafor does not have weeks. She has 12 hours. Su-Jin picked up the Glock and checked the magazine. I am going to get her back. How? You don't even know where that warehouse is. I will find it. He looked at Sang-hun. Call the team. Everyone we brought from Korea. Tell them the Iron Shadow needs them one more time. Sang-hun nodded and pulled out his phone. Lillian grabbed Su-Jin's arm. There has to be another way. There is not. This is the way my world works. They took someone under my protection. If I do not respond, they will take everyone I care about until I have nothing left. This is the only language they understand. Then let me help. No. Su-Jin. No. His voice cracked like a whip. You are not part of this. You are a counselor, not a soldier. I will not have your blood on my hands. You don't get to decide that. Yes, I do. Because if something happens to you, I will not be able to live with myself. The raw emotion in his voice stopped her. They stared at each other, the truth hanging between them. This had become about more than Nari, more than the school. Something had shifted between them in the past few days. Something neither of them had been ready for. Stay here, Su-Jin said, his voice gentler. Stay with Nari. Keep her safe. That is how you help me. Lillian wanted to argue, wanted to fight. But she saw the fear beneath his cold exterior, the terror of a man who'd lost everyone he loved and couldn't bear to lose anyone else. Okay, she whispered. But you come back. You hear me? You get Dr. Okafor and you come back. Su-Jin touched her face, just once. A brief moment of tenderness in the middle of the violence. I will come back. I promise. Then he turned to Sang-hun. How many men can we get? 6, including me. Armed and ready. Good. We move in 1 hour. He walked toward the door, the black case in his hand. The CEO was gone. The Iron Shadow had come home. The warehouse was in Bridgeport, in the industrial district where nobody asked questions and nobody called the police. Su-Jin and his team arrived at 11 p.m., using 3 different vehicles, dressed in black tactical gear that made them look like a SWAT team. Which, in a way, they were. Except they didn't answer to any government. Sang-hun had traced the video using metadata and cross-referenced it with property records. The warehouse was owned by a shell company that led back to a Korean import-export business. A front, obviously, for whoever was running the remnants of the White Tiger clan. Su-Jin stood in the shadows across the street, watching the building through night vision binoculars. 2 guards at the front entrance. Another on the roof. Possibly more inside. How do you want to play this? King Han asked. His voice was calm, professional. This wasn't his first operation. Fast and quiet. We go in through the back, neutralize the guards, extract Dr. Okafor, and disappear before they can call for reinforcements. And if they resist? Su-Jin lowered the binoculars. His expression was carved from stone. No survivors who threaten my family. The team moved into position. 3 men on the back entrance, 2 covering the front, Sang-hun and Su-Jin going through the roof access. They moved like ghosts, silent, efficient, lethal. The guard on the roof never saw Sang-hun coming. One moment he was checking his phone. The next, he was unconscious on the concrete. Su-Jin and Sang-hun dropped through a skylight into the warehouse interior. The space was massive. 30,000 square feet of empty concrete and steel girders. But in the center, under harsh fluorescent lights, was a makeshift camp. Folding chairs, portable heaters, sleeping bags. And in the middle of it all, still bound to a chair, was Dr. Chinyu Okafor. She was alive. Bruised, terrified, but alive. He counted 6 men. Alarmed. All wearing the same tattoo on their necks. A white tiger's head, the mark of the clan. One of them, the leader, judging by the way the others deferred to him, was older. Maybe 50. A scar ran from his left eye to his jaw, bisecting his face. Su-Jin recognized him immediately. Lee Jae-sung. One of the clan's senior enforcers. A man Su-Jin had fought beside in the old days. A man who'd sworn a blood oath to avenge the destruction of the White Tiger clan. Iron Shadow, Jae-sung said in Korean, not even looking up. I was wondering when you would arrive. Su-Jin stepped out of the shadows. His Glock aimed at Jae-sung's head. Let her go. No pleasantries. No, how have you been, old friend? Jae-sung smiled. It was not a nice smile. You always were too serious. I said let her go. Or what? You will shoot me. Go ahead. But the moment you do, my men will kill the doctor. And then they will go to your house and take the girl. Is that what you want? Su-Jin's finger tightened on the trigger. Behind him, Sang-hun had a clear shot on 2 of the guards. The rest of Su-Jin's team was moving into position through the back entrance. But Jae-sung was right. If this turned into a firefight, Dr. Okafor would die. What do you want? Su-Jin asked. You know what I want. The same thing I have wanted for 8 years. You destroyed the clan. You stole our future. Now I want yours. The clan deserved to be destroyed. Perhaps. But that was not your decision to make. You swore an oath, Iron Shadow. Blood in, blood out. You do not just walk away. I had no choice. There is always a choice. You chose betrayal. You chose to save your conscience instead of honoring your brothers. And now, Jae-sung gestured to Dr. Okafor, others pay the price for your choices. She has nothing to do with this. Of course she does. She stood with you against those Americans at the school. She is part of your new family. Just like the counselor. Just like the girl. Su-Jin felt ice flood his veins. If you touch Nari, I will not need to touch her. The Americans will do it for me. Jae-sung pulled out a folder and tossed it across the concrete floor. It slid to Su-Jin's feet. Open it. Su-Jin crouched slowly, keeping his gun trained on Jae-sung, and opened the folder with one hand. Inside were documents. Legal documents. A petition for emergency custody, filed with the Connecticut Family Court. Signed by Alistair Thorne and Sterling Vance. And attached to it, photographs. Crime scene photos from Busan. Bodies. A young Su-Jin Hajun, face visible in a surveillance still, standing over corpses. We gave these to your American friends, Jae-sung said. Told them you were a dangerous criminal. Killer. Unfit to raise a child. They were very grateful for the information. Su-Jin felt his world tilt. This is why Thorne threatened CPS, he said slowly. This is why they are so confident. They have evidence now. Real evidence. By tomorrow morning the authorities will come for you. And when they do, the girl will be placed in protective custody while they investigate. And when she is moved from your house to a foster facility, Jae-sung smiled. She will be vulnerable. And we will be waiting. Su-Jin's mind raced. They'd outplayed him. Used his own past against him. Weaponized the American legal system. Turned his daughter into bait. What do you want? He asked again. Turn yourself in. Confess to the murders in Busan. Face justice in Korea. Do this, and we leave the girl alone. We leave all of them alone. You pay your debt with your own blood, not theirs. You will kill me. Probably. But at least your daughter will live. Is that not what a good father would choose? Silence. Su-Jin looked at Dr. Okafor. She was crying now, shaking her head, trying to speak through the gag. He looked at Jae-sung, at this ghost from his past who'd hunted him across oceans and years. He looked at Sang-hun, whose expression said, "Your call, boss. Whatever you choose, we follow." And he thought about Nari, sleeping in the panic room, trusting that her appa would keep her safe. He'd made her a promise. "I will never let anyone hurt you." "No," Su-Jin said. Jae-sung's smile faded. "What?" "I said no. I will not turn myself in. I will not abandon my daughter. And I will not let you use my past to destroy my future." He raised his gun. "You want a war, Jae-sung? Then we have a war. But know this, I am not the same man I was in Busan. I have more to lose now. Which makes me far more dangerous." Jae-sung laughed. "You are bluffing. You will not risk the doctor's life." "You are right. I will not." Su-Jin pulled the trigger. But he didn't shoot Jae-sung. He shot the light directly above them, plunging the warehouse into darkness. And then all hell broke loose. The fight lasted 90 seconds. In the chaos and darkness, Su-Jin's team moved with practiced precision. They trained for this, for the moment when everything went wrong and violence was the only option. Sang-hun took out 2 guards with suppressed shots before they even knew they were under attack. 2 more of Su-Jin's men came through the back entrance, providing covering fire while the medic grabbed Dr. Okafor and dragged her toward safety. Su-Jin moved through the darkness like a wraith. His eyes adjusted. His instincts honed by years of survival. He found Jae-sung trying to escape through a side door and intercepted him. They fought hand to hand in the shadows. 2 men who'd once been brothers, now enemies. Jae-sung was fast, brutal, trained in the same killing arts as Su-Jin. But Su-Jin had something Jae-sung didn't. He had a reason to live. He disarmed Jae-sung, broke 2 of his ribs, and pinned him against the concrete wall. "You are going to listen to me now," Su-Jin said, his forearm against Jae-sung's throat. "You are going to call off your men. You are going to disappear. And you are never going to come near my family again. Or what? Or I will do what I should have done 8 years ago. I will hunt down every single person who was ever part of the White Tiger clan, and I will end them. Not arrest them. Not expose them. End them. Do you understand?" Jae-sung spat blood. "You do not have it in you anymore. You have gone soft. American soft." Su-Jin leaned in close. "Try me." Something in his eyes, something cold and empty and absolutely certain, made Jae-sung go still. "This is not over," Jae-sung whispered. "Yes, it is. Because if I ever see you again, I will not hesitate. I will not show mercy. I will put a bullet in your head and sleep soundly that night. The Iron Shadow is not dead, Jae-sung. He is just choosing not to kill you. Today." Su-Jin released him and stepped back. "Go. While you still can." Jae-sung stumbled toward the door, clutching his ribs. At the threshold he looked back. "The Americans still have the evidence. The court petition is already filed. Running from me will not save you from them. Let me worry about the Americans." Jae-sung disappeared into the night. Su-Jin's team regrouped at the vehicles. Dr. Okafor was shaken but unharmed. The medic was checking her for injuries while she sobbed with relief. "Thank you," she kept saying. "Thank you, thank you. You are safe now," Su-Jin said. "Sang-hun will take you home. Stay with your family tonight. Tomorrow we deal with the school. But the legal petition, if they have evidence. They have photographs from 8 years ago in another country. Photographs that may or may not be me. Without context, without chain of custody, without Korean law enforcement cooperation, those photos are meaningless. But they will investigate. Let them investigate. They will find a legitimate businessman who has committed no crimes on American soil. He looked at Sang-hun. Get her home. Then come back to the estate. We need to talk about our next move. Su-Jin arrived home at 2 a.m. Lillian was waiting in his office, still awake, curled up in his desk chair. She'd clearly tried to stay vigilant but had dozed off at some point. Her head was tilted at an awkward angle, her hair falling across her face. Su-Jin stood in the doorway for a long moment, just looking at her. This woman who'd entered his life 3 weeks ago and changed everything. Who'd stood up to him, challenged him, seen the worst parts of his past and hadn't run. Who'd waited for him to come home. He walked over and gently touched her shoulder. She woke with a start, her eyes wide. Su-Jin. I am here. Dr. Okafor. Safe. Home with her family. Lillian's entire body sagged with relief. Then she stood up and did something that surprised them both. She wrapped her arms around him and held on tight. Su-Jin froze for a moment, uncertain. It had been so long since someone had touched him with tenderness rather than violence. Since someone had held him like he was something precious rather than dangerous. Slowly, carefully, he put his arms around her and held her back. They stood there in the quiet darkness of his office, two broken people clinging to each other in the aftermath of violence. I was so scared, Lillian whispered against his chest. I kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. All the ways I might never see you again. I made you a promise. I do not break promises. She pulled back just enough to look up at him. What happens now? Now we end this. All of it. The school, the clan, all the threats against Nari. Tomorrow we go back to Silverwood and we finish what we started. They have evidence against you now. Jae-sung gave them. I know. But evidence without context is just pictures. And I have something better than pictures. What? The truth. And a very expensive lawyer who knows how to use it. Lillian smiled despite everything. You really think we can win this? Su-Jin tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch gentle. I think that anyone who stands between me and my daughter's safety is going to learn a very painful lesson about what happens when you corner a predator. You're not a predator. Yes, I am. But I am a predator with a conscience now. And that makes all the difference. He kissed her forehead, a brief, tender gesture that felt like a promise. Go get some sleep. Tomorrow we go to war one last time. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. Su-Jin arrived at 7:45, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Lillian was beside him in a professional navy dress. Behind them, Diane Rothstein carried 3 briefcases full of documentation. And behind her, to everyone's surprise, walked Dr. Chinyu Okafor and Nadege Baptiste, both dressed for battle. The board was already assembled. Sterling Vance, Alistair Thorne, and 5 other members. Their lawyer, Patricia Winters, sat at the head of the table. And beside her, bringing Su-Jin up short, were 2 men in cheap suits. Detectives. Mr. Ha-jun, Patricia Winters said with barely concealed triumph. Thank you for coming. We wanted to discuss some troubling information that has come to our attention. Information from a Korean criminal organization. Su-Jin said calmly. I am aware. They tried to extort me by feeding you false evidence. Patricia blinked. False. Completely fabricated. Photographs taken out of context. Claims made by convicted criminals trying to settle old scores. My attorney has already filed a motion to dismiss your custody petition on the grounds of bad faith and evidence tampering. Diane stepped forward and placed a document on the table. Additionally, we've contacted the Korean National Police. The actual facts about the incident in Busan 8 years ago are very different from what you've been told. She slid another document across the table. Mr. Ha-jun was a confidential informant working with Korean authorities to bring down a human trafficking ring. The murders you've been shown evidence of were ruled justifiable self-defense. He was granted immunity in exchange for his testimony, which resulted in the arrest and conviction of 47 members of an organized crime syndicate. The room went silent. Su-Jin watched Alistair Thorne's face turn from smug to pale in real time. The people who gave you that evidence are the same people who tried to kill Mr. Ha-jun for betraying their organization, Diane continued. By accepting their information without verification, you've made yourselves accessories to witness intimidation and attempted extortion. One of the detectives cleared his throat. Mr. Ha-jun, we'd like to ask you some questions about the incident last night in Bridgeport. I am happy to cooperate, Su-Jin said smoothly. But first, I think these board members have some questions to answer. He gestured to Lillian, who pulled out her own stack of documents. For the past 3 weeks, I've been documenting systematic discrimination and financial fraud at this institution, Lillian said. Her voice was steady, professional, devastating. The integration and enrichment program that charges minority families an additional $15,000 per year doesn't exist. The money goes directly into discretionary accounts controlled by Principal Vance and Board Chairman Thorne. She turned to the other board members. Did any of you know about this? Their faces said they didn't. Furthermore, Lillian continued, there are emails discussing deliberate strategies to create hostile environments for minority students in order to force their families to withdraw. This isn't neglect. This is calculated racial discrimination. Dr. Okafor stood. My son has been bullied for months. I reported it repeatedly. Nothing was done. Because your school wanted us to leave. Nadege Baptiste stood beside her. My daughters have been isolated, mocked, and harassed. We were told it was cultural adjustment. It was racism. Su-Jin placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to accept my original terms. Full refund of all fraudulent fees, implementation of real anti-bullying policies, termination of everyone involved in this scheme, and a $2 million scholarship fund for underrepresented students. And if we refuse, Alistair Thorne said, his voice shaking, then we hold a press conference in exactly 1 hour. I have contacted the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, and 6 other major outlets. They are very interested in a story about elite private school racism and embezzlement. He straightened up. Your choice. But choose quickly because my patience has run out. Patricia Winters looked at her clients, at the evidence spread across the table, at the detectives who were clearly more interested in investigating the board than Su-Jin. We need to caucus, she said. You have 10 minutes, Diane responded. The board caucused for 45 minutes. When they returned, Sterling Vance looked like he'd aged a decade. Alistair Thorne wasn't with them. Mr. Thorne has resigned from the board, one of the other members, a woman named Victoria Leeds, said. She was a venture capitalist, someone Su-Jin recognized as one of the few members with actual integrity. So has Principal Vance. Sterling flinched but said nothing. We accept your terms, Victoria continued. Full refunds, real reforms, the scholarship fund, all of it. And my daughter, Nari, is welcome to continue at Silverwood with our full support. We will implement new policies to ensure what happened to her never happens to another student. Su-Jin studied her. Why should I believe you? Because I have 3 children of my own, Mr. Ha-jun. And I'm horrified that this happened under my watch. I failed in my oversight duties. I let corrupt men run this institution while I focused on other things. That ends now. She looked at Dr. Okafor and Nadege. I cannot undo what was done to your families. But I can promise you that Silverwood will be different. Starting today. There was real remorse in her voice. We will hold you to that, Dr. Okafor said. Please do. One of the detectives stood. Mr. Ha-jun, about last night. Last night, I received a ransom demand for Dr. Okafor's safe return. I contacted private security, who helped negotiate her release. The kidnappers were members of a Korean criminal organization with no legal standing in the United States. I have their names, descriptions, and last known locations, which I will provide to your investigation. It was all technically true, just not complete. The detective looked skeptical but nodded. We'll need a formal statement. Of course. My attorney will coordinate. Outside in the parking lot, Dr. Okafor hugged Su-Jin tightly. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. For standing up, for fighting, for coming to get me last night. You stood with me first. I could do no less. Nadege approached more cautiously. Mr. Ha-jun, I owe you an apology. When you called, I was afraid. I should have trusted you. You were protecting your daughters. I understand that better than anyone. She smiled. Well, we're in this together now. All of us. The three families stood together in the morning sun. The Okafors, the Baptistes, the Hajuns. No longer isolated, no longer fighting alone. We should form a parents' association, Dr. Okafor said. Make sure the board actually follows through on their promises. I will chair it, Nadege offered. I have experience with non-profit governance. And I will provide legal support, Diane added. Pro bono. I want to make sure Silverwood keeps its promises. Lillian smiled. Looks like you just started a revolution. No, Su-Jin said quietly, looking at the school building. We just reminded them that every child deserves to be safe. Even the ones who look different. That evening, Su-Jin sat on the floor of Nari's bedroom, braiding her hair. She was chattering about her day. Mrs. Park had taken her to the park, and they'd fed the ducks, and she'd found a perfectly smooth stone that she wanted to keep forever. Normal 8-year-old things. Su-Jin's hands moved through her hair with practiced ease now. French braid, Dutch braid, fishtail. He'd mastered them all. Appa, Nari said suddenly. Yes, GWI coat. Why were you gone all night? Mrs. Park said you had to help a friend. Su-Jin's hands paused for just a moment. I did. Dr. Okafor, Chitty's mother, needed help. So I helped her. Because that's what good people do. Yes, that is what good people do. Nari was quiet for a moment. Then, Appa, am I going back to school? Do you want to? She thought about it. I don't know. The boys were mean. Miss Billy is there. And she's nice. And you said things are going to be different now. They will be. I promise. You promise a lot, Appa. I do. And I always keep my promises. She turned around to look at him, her dark eyes. So much like her father Kofi's, serious and searching. Miss Billy makes you smile, she said. Su-Jin blinked. What? Miss Billy. When she talks you smile. Like you're happy. She is a kind person. Do you love her? The question hit Su-Jin like a physical blow. He stared at his daughter, this 8-year-old who saw too much, understood too much. He struggled for words. It is complicated, Naria. That's what grown-ups say when the answer is yes. Despite everything, the violence, the fear, the exhaustion, Su-Jin laughed. When did you become so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't notice because you're busy being scary to bad people. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. I love you more than anything in this world. I love you too, Appa. Even when you're being the Iron Shadow. Su-Jin froze. What did you say? The Iron Shadow. That's what Sang-hun calls you when he thinks I'm not listening. He says you used to be the Iron Shadow, but now you're just my Appa. She pulled back and looked at him seriously. I like that you're just my Appa now. The Iron Shadow sounds scary. Su-Jin cupped her face in his hands. I will always be your Appa first. Everything else comes second. Even Miss Billy. Even Miss Billy. Nari smiled. Good. But I still think you should marry her. Then she could braid my hair too, and you could take breaks. Go to bed, you troublemaker. She giggled and climbed under her covers. Su-Jin tucked her in, kissed her forehead and turned off the lights. The door he paused. Nari. Yes, Appa. Thank you for being brave. I know the past few days have been scary. It's okay. I knew you would protect me. You always do. The simple faith in her voice nearly broke him. Always, he promised. Now sleep. Tomorrow is a new day. Downstairs, Lillian was waiting in the living room. She'd stayed for dinner. Mrs. Park had insisted, and Su-Jin hadn't argued. Now she stood by the window, looking out at the darkened grounds, a glass of wine in her hand. She asleep? Lillian asked without turning around. Finally. She asked if I was going to marry you. Lillian choked on her wine. She what? 8-year-olds are terrifyingly observant. What did you tell her? Su-Jin walked over to stand beside her. I told her it was complicated. Is it? He looked at her. This woman who'd risked everything for his daughter, who'd stood beside him through violence and fear, who'd seen the worst parts of him and hadn't run. Yes, he said honestly. I am a man with a very dark past. I have done terrible things. I have enemies who will always be looking for me. Being with me means living with that shadow. Always. I know. You deserve better. Someone clean. Someone safe. Someone who can give you a normal life. Lillian set down her wine glass and turned to face him. I don't want normal. I've tried normal. It's boring and disappointing, and it never challenges me to be better. She stepped closer. You scare the hell out of me, Su-Jin Ha-jun. But you also make me feel more alive than I have in years. You make me want to fight harder, stand stronger, be braver. Lillian, I'm not asking for promises. I'm not asking for forever. I'm just asking if you feel it too. This thing between us. Su-Jin stared at her. I have not allowed myself to feel anything for anyone in 10 years. It was too dangerous. Too distracting. I could not afford to care about anyone except Nari. And now I lie awake at night thinking about you. I find excuses to call you. I memorize the way you look when you smile. He stopped, the admission too raw. Lillian reached up and touched his face. You're falling for me. I fell weeks ago. I am just too stubborn to admit it. She smiled, that brilliant, genuine smile that transformed her entire face. Good. Because I fell the moment you walked into my office and looked at me like I was the first person who'd ever told you the truth. Su-Jin pulled her close, his hands settling at her waist. This is a terrible idea. The best ones usually are. My life is dangerous. Complicated. So is mine now. I'm apparently the person who helps reformed mafia enforcers take down corrupt schools. There is nothing reformed about me. Liar. The old you would have burned that school down. The new you fought for justice instead. Only because you were there to remind me. Then I'll keep reminding you. He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. What are we doing, Lillian? I don't know. But I want to find out. He kissed her then. Finally, after weeks of tension and fear and fighting side by side. It was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid this fragile thing between them might shatter. But then Lillian's hands fisted in his shirt and Su-Jin's control snapped. The kiss deepened, became desperate, urgent, a promise and a prayer all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Su-Jin rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Tonight. Just stay. Okay, she breathed. Okay. They stood there in the darkened living room, holding each other, two broken people finding something whole in each other's arms. Outside, the Connecticut night was peaceful. The threats had been neutralized. The battles had been won. But Su-Jin knew this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges, more threats, more moments when his past tried to destroy his future. But now he wouldn't face them alone. Now he had Lillian. And somehow that made all the difference. As they moved toward the stairs together, neither of them noticed the figure standing in the shadows beyond the property line. A woman in a dark suit, watching the house through night vision binoculars. She lifted a phone to her ear. Target has established romantic attachment. Subject remains in Connecticut. Phase 1 complete. A pause as she listened to the voice on the other end. Affirmative. Proceeding to Phase 2. The daughter remains the primary leverage point. When you're ready to activate the Iron Shadow, we'll know exactly which buttons to push. She lowered the binoculars and smiled. He thinks he's retired. He thinks he's safe. He has no idea what's coming. She disappeared into the darkness, leaving only the faint scent of expensive perfume and the echo of a threat that wouldn't materialize for months. But when it did, Su-Jin Ha-jun would learn that the past never stays buried. And the Iron Shadow's war was far from over. That ending though. If you want part 2 of this story, you need to let me know. Drop part 2 in the comments, smash that subscribe button, and tell me, who do you think that woman was? Is she friend or foe? What's Phase 2? Drop your theories below. And seriously, where are you watching from? I love hearing from you all. See you in the next one.